prawn cocktail may be a little bit retro, but I think it's timeless. To start with, we need to make the dressing. This is a Murray Rose dressing. We need mayonnaise, a good amount of mayonnaise, about 2 tablespoons of whole egg mayonnaise. Ideally, make this yourself. Some recipes call for just the mayonnaise, but I love the addition of creme fraiche. Creme fraiche is mild, tangy, and creamy. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of creme fraiche, and I'll roughly measure that out. And for a classic Murray Rose, we need Tabasco. I'm going to be bold and brave and have 4 drops today. And Worcestershire sauce. But I tell you what, it is such a great addition to meat and seafood and sauces like this. I'm going to add a little bit to my dressing, along with the tomato sauce. This is just classic sweet tomato sauce. And for some extra heat, cayenne pepper. And for acidity, some lemon. I'm using some of the zest and the juice, half the zest, and then I'll cut this lemon in half. Reserve the rest, we'll garnish the prawns later on with it. And the last key ingredients for this sauce is brandy. Only a small little bit of brandy, about a teaspoon. And now we whisk this together. And you want this to be slightly thick. Now that sauce is looking perfect, so now we can bathe our prawns in the sauce. These are cooked prawns, find the best quality Australian prawns. I've deveined them, taken the tail off. I'm going to leave them whole. But by all means, if you use really large prawns, do cut them in half. And you can also use the little ones too, they're really sweet. Now with a spoon, mix it around and coat them. See how that sauce is sticking to the prawns? That's the perfect consistency. Now I'll just put my prawns to the side. We can start shredding the lettuce. Classically, it's done with iceberg. You could use cos, definitely not rocket or mesclun salad. I'll peel the leaves off, and we want to shred it as thin as possible. So start with 3 and roll it up. And then with a really sharp knife, finely shred it. We need to season this with a little salt, just a small amount, and some pepper. And because I'm not mixing the prawns through it, I am going to just dress it ever so slightly with a little bit of lemon juice and a drizzle of olive oil. Again, just a small amount, and that is perfect. Now we can dress it with the prawns. I'll make a little nest in the center, just so our prawns have a little bed to sit on. And then, depending on how generous you want to make this entree, or it could be a main if you like, a little bit more of that sauce. So simple. And to garnish this, chives, very finely chopped again. And then pop that on top. And a hint of lemon. That is a slightly modern interpretation of the old-fashioned prawn cocktail that never disappoints, and it's always delicious. Now we know ham, turkey and roast pork is pretty popular at Christmas, but duck is just as popular. I'm going to show you a super simple way to get it ready. This is a whole duck here. When you bring your duck home, you want to take it out of the pack, you want to pat it dry and then air dry it in the fridge. This is super important for crispy duck crackling. I've also taken off the neck and I've taken the wishbone out just like you would do for a chicken. Another thing I like to do is take away this wing tip. So we'll just go through the cartilage here, and I take this off because it will burn in the oven when we cook it later. So keep that for stock if you like, along with the neck. And I'll do the other side. Now there's 2 stages to cook this duck. We need to steam it first, and this is going to render the fat and again give us that really nice thin film of fat to make the crackling, and then we'll roast it later on. So in a really large wok like this, and mine has a lid, I've placed a rack into the wok and I've placed some water in there too. In with our beautiful duck. Now we're going to pop that lid on, and this is going to steam for 1 hour. Once that's cooked, it goes into the fridge and it's going to dry again for about 3 hours, or even better, overnight. So I've removed the steamed duck out of the fridge and brought it back to room temperature. So all we need to do now is just warm it up and get that skin super golden. We just need some salt to season it. And I like to elevate it in a tray just like this, so we do get that even colour around the whole duck. The oven is on at 190 degrees, 45 minutes, it'll be ready. Now, while our duck is roasting, let's get onto the sauce. It's pretty much a take on sweet and sour pork. Saltiness comes from soy. About 2 tablespoons of soy into the pot. Some sesame oil. The sweetness comes from good old ketchup, and it's going to give it a lovely colour, about ½ a cup. I'll also add some Chinese 5-spice. It's festive because it's got clove through it, it's got cinnamon, and some rice wine vinegar, so that's going to give us that sour component. And then to bring the whole thing together, I'm using some chicken stock, but you could absolutely use water for this. Okay, I'm going to give it a quick whisk. And now this is going to come to the boil, and it's going to take about 5 to 8 minutes or until it's glossy. In the meantime, I'm going to cut some fruit. Duck goes with lots of different types of fruit, including orange. But you know what? When it comes to summer and Christmas, nectarines work a treat. So I'm just going to cut them into chunks. Once that's cooked, we'll pop that in the sauce. Okay, this sauce has thickened up nicely, it's glossy, and the nectarines have just warmed through. Now I'll pour this onto a large tray, just like this one, and just with a spoon, we're just going to spread that out so we're showing them off. Now this duck has been resting. Just take it out of the tray and then onto our serving platter. And I'm not going to carve this yet. I love the idea at Christmas, taking a whole duck to the table and carving it in front of my friends. When I think of my favourite foodie memories, it's the simplest things that resonate with me most. Just like a roast pork roll that I had in Italy. It was so delicious. So I'm going to try to replicate it. And what they served was porchetta, which is a rolled pork belly. Now, this is festive food, so you want to do this for a big group of people. This is about 3 kilograms of pork belly, so a whole side of pork belly. And I've asked my butcher to score the skin and remove all the ribs. So it's purely just the meat. And you can see there's a nice amount of fat, so it's going to stay super moist throughout the cooking process. I've allowed this to air dry in my fridge uncovered overnight. And I do this because it's going to make the crispiest crackling. Now I'm going to turn the piece of pork over, and I'm going to add a lovely marinade to this. Super simple flavours that go nicely with pork. So 4 ingredients, 3 cloves of garlic, and I'll add a generous pinch of salt to that. When I say generous, I mean a generous amount, because we do need to season a 3 kilogram piece of pork. So now I'm just going to crush and make this into a sticky paste. Looks good. And now some rosemary, 2 sprigs of rosemary. I'm going to take all of the leaves off. When you're taking the leaves off, it's always best to start from the top and work your way down the stalk, and it gets everything off with ease. Second one. I'll also add some fennel seeds, a generous amount of them, and a little hint of chilli. Now I'm going to give this a really good pound until it's completely crushed. Okay, Okay, workout done for the day. Now I'm going to bring this all together with some extra virgin olive oil. We need about 40 mils of it, or until it just comes together like a thick paste. That smell of fennel, chilli and rosemary, very dominant flavours, but fantastic for a fatty piece of meat just like this. Okay, now we're going to pour this marinade over our pork. So just drizzle it. And with a spoon, we're going to spread it out all the way to the sides. Now, ideally, when it comes to rolling porchetta, it's best to do it with 2 people because it is quite a large piece of meat. But I am going to try to do this myself. So I'm going to roll it onto itself horizontally. I'm going to place it on my board and squish it together so it's one big Swiss roll-like piece of pork. And I've got some twine here, and we're going to slowly start to tie the piece of meat up. So I'm going to do a very simple tie because it's much easier to do, and I find it holds the pork in place much better. So a double knot, and then tie that up nice and firmly, and then another knot. Perfect. And every 1 to 2 centimetres, I'm going to add another piece of string until it's completely tied up. Okay, the pork is tied and I'm just taking away the excess string. And now I'm going to transfer this over to a tray with a rack in it. That just elevates it from the bottom so it does go crispy around the whole piece of pork belly. Some oil, a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. And I've really tried hard not to get any of that marinade on the skin because it's going to go into a hot oven now. And if any of that marinade is on the skin, it's going to burn. So we'll just pop that on an angle so it just fits. And a nice amount of salt on the skin so it sticks. That's also going to help our lovely crackling. The oven is set to 220 degrees, a hot oven. This is going to cook for about 20 to 30 minutes or until it's blistered and crispy. Then I'm going to turn it down to 160 and it's going to cook for a further 2 hours. Well, this is very exciting. Look at this porchetta, just perfect. And this is the sound we always want to hear. Crispy crackling. Now, once it's cooked, allow it to rest for at least half an hour. You can serve this cold. I'm going to serve it at room temperature, and you can serve it with your favourite sides or do it the very traditional Italian style way, which is with mustard fruits and mayonnaise. Now, mustard fruits are a variety of fruits like pears and apricots that have been pickled in some sugar, some salt, also some mustard. I'll pop that into the mayonnaise and mix that through. Pork's quite fatty, so the sweetness is quite welcoming for this dish. Okay, I'll place the porchetta onto the board, and we need to take the string away, so you could use some scissors or a little knife, and we're just going to tease and cut that string away and take it off. Okay, now to slice this, use a serrated knife. And we'll just cut a small amount there. I want you to see that lovely marinade that we added. Music to my ears. I love this. Now, I'm not going to cut this too thick because I do want to use it as a sandwich filling. See how all that fennel and rosemary is still in there? It smells fantastic. And look how juicy that pork belly is. All right, these lovely fluffy bread rolls. I'm just going to pull one off and we'll cut that in half. And just on one side, the base, I'll add some of the mustard fruit mayonnaise, generous helping, and we'll fill that with lots of porchetta. Look at that. I think that's the king of all sandwiches right there. You don't need any lettuce on it, no cabbage, just enjoy it as is. Squish that down. And I'm gonna say very little right now, but enjoy. As they would say in Italian, buonissimo. Trifle equals Christmas to me. I love trifle. There are so many different varieties out there using canned fruit, using all different tropical fruits, but I'm going to show you a very simple one, the one that I think tastes the best, a raspberry trifle. Now you're going to need lots of fresh berries for this. It really does make a difference to the end result. And I've cut it back. I'm not adding too many things. I'm just adding the key things, which is loads of raspberries, custard cream, and of course, cake. You can get store-bought cake for this. I give you permission. In fact, I think it tastes even better. So let's start with warming up some cream and some milk. This is going to be for our custard base. So some thickened cream. We want about 100 mils of cream. To that, I'll add some milk, 500 mils of milk, and 1 vanilla bean. I think homemade custard with fresh vanilla bean in it is just so important. So I'm just using my hands just to warm up the vanilla bean. This just helps get out all those little seeds. I'll grab a small knife, cut through the centre, and then we're going to scrape out the seeds. Just like that. And on the other side, scrape the seeds. Fantastic. Now don't waste the bean, there's still so much flavour in here, so that also goes into the milk along with all those seeds. I'm making this custard now because I want it to be chilled, so this can go into the fridge. In fact, if you're doing this for a party or for Christmas, you can make this up to 3 days ahead of time, so be really organised. All right, while that's heating up, let's get onto the jelly. So I've got 250 mils of boiling water, store-bought jelly, raspberry jelly for this. I'll grab a little whisk and we'll just add that. I don't have that much jelly here, and that's how I like it, because essentially I want this jelly to be the glue for all the fresh berries. To assemble this, we're going to need a trifle bowl. This one's a 4-litre capacity bowl. This is going to feed a lot of people. And for our fresh raspberries, look how fat and plump they are. There's nothing better than a fresh raspberry. So in they go. I'm going to need about 4 to 5 punnets. You can change this up and use some fresh strawberries, or if you like, you can use a mixture of fresh berries. So in they go. Look at them, they look like little jewels in there. I really want the berries to cover the entire base of the trifle bowl. Okay. And just give that a jiggle and spread them out. Now for the jelly, I'm just going to pour that jelly over the raspberries. And as you can see, it really is just going to stick them all together. Now we can't put another layer on this because it's still quite liquidy, so we need that jelly to set. It's only a thin amount of jelly, so it's only going to take a few hours to set, so into the fridge. Right, this cream and milk mixture is boiling. It smells so good with that vanilla. So to finish off the custard, 6 egg yolks. To that, I'm going to add some corn flour and sugar. What I like to do is just add a little tablespoon of the sugar into the corn flour and give that a mix. You could use custard powder if you want, but I just like to keep it very traditional. Then we can add that to our egg yolks. So that's the first stage. We'll mix that in. Dissolve all of that corn flour into the eggs, and then in with the rest of the sugar. Now you don't have to beat this until it's thick and pale, just give it a really good mix until most of that sugar has dissolved in. So you can hear that it sounds grainy right now. If you keep mixing it, you'll see in about 10 seconds it's dissolved through. Perfect. Okay, once that's boiled, turn it off, and we're just going to whisk and pour at the same time. I like to whisk and pour at the same time so we don't get scrambled eggs. So you want to work fast. If you've got a second person in the kitchen, by all means, do this as a team much faster. Perfect. Okay, this now needs to thicken, so our pot goes back on the stove top. I'm going to pour this custard mixture with the vanilla bean back into the pot. All those little speckles of vanilla, don't waste them, get them in there. Grab a wooden spoon. So you want all those little bubbles to dissipate and you're left with this thick custard. That then goes into a bowl, cover it with cling film, and then into the fridge to cool completely. All right, the jelly has set. You can see all those little raspberries. They're stuck in there like glue, so that's the first layer. The second layer is our jam sponge. Now, you can make it yourself, but I think the store-bought one will evoke so many memories of trifles when I was a kid and how we used to have them then, so that's why I like to bring this one in. It also saves so much time. So we're going to cut it into about 2 to 3 centimetre rounds, because that's the next layer. So keep slicing, and you can see the store-bought one, it really does hold its shape nicely. Okay, so next we're going to start around the sides. So we really want to show it off around the sides. So what I like to do is just press it in and down to show that little swirly effect that's on there. So it doesn't have to be perfect. We just want it to roughly hold its shape until we get to the centre. And when we get to the centre, we'll also cover all of those raspberries. So just around, and that last one, just break that up. And the rest of the rounds, we're just going to press down on top of the raspberries. So you should have enough with one. Yep, absolutely perfect for a 4 litre capacity trifle tin. Press down on that. I'm using Cointreau. You could use some brandy, any liqueur you like, or you can completely leave it out. This is just going to soak in to our lovely sponge here, giving it a bit of a festive feel. Okay, now we can add a pool of homemade custard. I did say you can use store-bought sponge, but when it comes to the custard, you've got to make it yourself because it just tastes so much better. So we'll take that little cling film off. I'll remove the vanilla bean. It's done its job. It's really flavoured and perfumed, this custard. And it's as simple as pouring that all over our sponge. Wow, just drenching it and letting it sort of fall into all those nooks and crannies. And a trifle is never complete without cream. So I've just made some chantilly cream, which is just a fancy French word for whipped cream with icing sugar and more vanilla bean. And I want this to look kind of rustic, so I'm just making little mounds of that fluffy cream and just piling it into the centre. Okay. Now it is a raspberry trifle, so more raspberries, 2 more punnets of fresh plump raspberries, and we just top that trifle with loads. In fact, just go wild with the raspberries on this. Really pile them up. And a little icing sugar, just dusted over those berries. And there you have it, Christmas trifle with a bit of a raspberry feel, homemade custard. I love any type of trifle, but this one that really shows off raspberries and is not overworked, there's not too many ingredients, this one is just an absolute stunner.